Good morning, everyone. Coming at you this morning with a little bit of a different video. I'm actually going to do a top 10 list of, well, personally, my favorite Charizards that I personally own. Really, the only criteria for this was I have to own it and I also have to like it. So, as I was actually kind of going through my collection today, I realized that doing a top 10 was actually a little bit trickier than what I thought it would be. So, for myself, I kind of gave it a little bit more criteria. I wanted to have a mix of things. I wanted to have some that were just cool simply because of the artwork, some that held sentimental value, and maybe some other ones that were just also incredibly rare and were hard to find. Um, so we'll get started. So our first one here is actually a promo that was only released over in Japan. So this was actually made as a way to commemorate a stadium that they opened up on one of the islands. I am not sure offhand just which one, but it's a rather basic card. However, I like the idea that they've got Charizard kind of going into a stadium, and it's made to commemorate a stadium. So it's nothing too fancy, but I just think for a promo, it kind of it does everything that you want it to do. It's not overly flashy. Really, just kind of sets a really nice tone, and it's pretty cool to own. I believe these are still relatively cheap as well. So if you would want to pick one up, I want to say from last I remember, I think they're still below $30, but it's a cheap card that you can get. And like I said, for a promo, especially one meant to commemorate the opening of a stadium, I think it's actually really, really good. So our next one then is the Japanese Neo 2 reverse foil Charizard promo. So a couple interesting things about this one, or really just the main one, the backing on this card. So for those of you that are into some of the newer Japanese cards, they've actually completely redone the back. I forget when exactly it was that they changed it. However, this was the original back that was printed on most of the Japanese cards up until I want to say maybe mid 2000s, probably later. But yeah, overall, this is just a really kind of beautiful card. This is one that would actually fall more into the sentimental category for me. So when my cousin got married earlier this year, he actually surprised a lot of us with our favorite cards, and or at least our favorite Pokemon, and then picked a card that he thought that we would really like. And I got to give him credit because he nailed this one. It's just such a beautiful card, especially a lot of these earlier reverse hollows. Just the way that the reverse hollow is done, I love it. And so moving in then to our next one here is the Charizard full, or I guess alternate art VMAX, and this is actually from the Charizard Premium Collector's Box. This is just one where, as you can kind of see based off of the mat, it was heavily inspired by that, or vice versa. But I think it's absolutely beautiful. So Charizard VMAX was also on the competitive side very, very popular. In fact, it was actually probably the most success, at least in the video games, that Charizard has ever probably had. I do know in Gen 6 and at a few other spots, he did also have a lot of competitive success as well. However, due to those sneaky pebbles, Charizard's actually a lot of times kind of knocked down to the lower tiers just because it's not really too great whenever you have to come out onto the field and automatically lose half your health. But I do think this card and the artwork on it does a really good job of kind of, I guess, showing how destructive something like Gigantamax would have been, if it was a real thing where, hey, you just have, I believe Charizard's actually under 5 foot, but if you could shoot him up to like the size of a skyscraper and he just completely lost his mind, how that would be terrifying. And I think this artwork does a perfect job at capturing that. And so our next one actually kind of perfect. So speaking of alternate forms, this is the Mega Charizard EX. So this is from the Pokemon Generation set. This is actually one of 2 Charizards from that set that will be on this list. And this is the X Mega version. So Charizard actually was one of 2 Pokemon, the other one being Mewtwo, that received 2 Mega evolutions. You had Mega Charizard X and Mega Charizard Y. And just like the Mewtwo, it depended on which game you had bought. If you had bought Pokemon X, you got this Charizard. If you bought Pokemon Y, you got the Y Mega evolution. The reason, though, I personally really love this one is just because it gave us the dragon typing to Charizard. So as someone who kind of grew up with the game, being a little kid when you first saw Charizard in that, the first thing you kind of always thought of was a fire-breathing dragon. However, and understandably gameplay-wise, they couldn't give him the dragon typing. It would kind of destroy, the balance of the starters in that with, fire is good against grass, but it's also weak to water. Water is good against fire, but weak to grass, and so on and so forth. And by adding the dragon typing, that would have actually removed the weakness to the water type. So I do think it is cool that, and again, it is because, let's be honest, Charizard is probably one of Game Freak's favorites. Pretty much every time they make a new Charizard, they're essentially, they figured out the way to print money. Let's be honest here. Nevertheless, though, coming back to the series, I kind of got out during the Diamond Pearl and then came back, I guess technically during Sword and Shield. It was cool to be able to get to go back and actually through Let's Go experience the Megas. And Mega Charizard X, it's always going to be my personal favorite. I kind of love that idea that, something that we all thought as little kids was a dragon finally got that dragon typing. And again, it's just amazing to hear how deadly, too, on the competitive scene this was. So cruising right along then next. So these next 2 actually kind of both fall under the same category, and you'll see why. But this is the Trainer Gallery Charizard from Brilliant Stars. So it's got Leon and Charizard. It really may not appear to be super special. I don't think this is even like a super expensive card or anything like that. But I just like the idea of, as I said, I came back into the series with Sword and Shield, and so playing through the game, Leon, he's always got his Charizard out. And I feel like this card just did a really good job of kind of showing that bond. But also a lot of times, when we are trying to print Charizards, let's be honest, most people, they want like the big, intimidating, scary boy. And, here he just kind of looks more like, he looks like a lapdog. So I think it's really cool the way that they did this. And I think Leon was a great trainer to have with it. So yeah, just really kind of love the idea of it's taking a different approach to the image that Charizard kind of has, but it's also a pretty fun one. And like I said, our next one actually kind of ties into that, and this is also from the same set as the Mega Charizard. So this was actually kind of a secret rare that was added to the set. I know it stands for, or it's RC. I can't remember offhand what that stands for. However, it's just a regular Charizard. The thing, though, that I love about this and some of the other sets, or I guess some other cards in the Pokemon series, are when the cards tell almost a story, especially whenever it's done through multiple evolution levels. So this one actually, in kind of a weird way, mimicked the Charizard that Ash had in the original series, except whoever our trainer is in this picture is a little bit more competent, let's be honest. So the first start is essentially, you've got a young kid at school. He's got his, little Charmander and that, and the two are just the best of friends. As it evolves, it becomes literally Ash's Charmeleon. He's an angsty teen, and he's kind of bullying the kid. And it's kind of cool to see that, as they've evolved, they've shared so much life experiences together that, they do have this really close bond. And I just really enjoy that the artwork, through not just this card, but multiple cards, was able to really capture that. And for me, that's what will always make this one of my favorites. Plus, with that reverse foil design kind of going on, almost with like the snowflakes, I just think that's really, really cool. And so moving on to our next one now, it is another promo. This is actually the first Charizard promo that was ever made. So this was actually made for the original Pokemon TCG game for the Game Boy. However, the promos, at least to my knowledge, they were only released over in Japan. And you actually got 3 with them. So you got Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur, the final evolutions of all 3 of the main starters. To me, I really, really love this artwork. Again, this is the artwork that is very similar, if not the exact same, to what was on the original Pokemon Red version. And it's just such a classic depiction of Charizard. So I really love it. Plus the fact that it's one that we never got in English. It's pretty cool to own one of these myself. I don't know how well it's going to show, but there are some damages to it. However, I'm completely okay with that. For me, it's just having it is really, really cool. And again, because this is an older one, it also has that exact same background. And just something else interesting as well, because I think this is our last Japanese one. So if you could read Japanese, that actually wouldn't say Charizard, it would actually say Lizardon. So for a lot of people, that's kind of the reasoning as they use why Charizard isn't a dragon, is because it is a lizard. Granted, dragons would probably be reptiles, but however, I think the way that they interpret it is, if Game Freak truly wanted it to be a dragon, they would have said something more along the lines of that. But they clearly, in the name with Lizardon, were going for lizard. And our next one here is from Brilliant Stars. So this was one of the full arts from the set, and it's just the standard Charizard V. And I'll be honest, for me, this one, the artwork, it's just awesome. Really, the big thing that I love about it is it's depicting Charizard actively engaging Venusaur. And this is also one as well where there is a little bit of a story to it. So in the promos for the Charizard Ultra Premium Collection, the regular Charizard V in there is depicted as just kind of laying down in like a field, if I could remember how to speak there, or kind of like the start of a forest area. And you can just kind of see him popping his eyes open as he knows something's around, and off in the background there's a Venusaur. And so this one here kind of strikes me as the next step in that, with them actively engaging in a battle. And it's just a absolutely beautiful card. So our next one, this is actually one of the first secret rares that was ever printed. And this is the Shining Charizard from Neo Revelation. So the Shining cards were something that were actually first introduced in the original Neo Revelations. This was a set that was started during the Gold, Silver, and Crystal era. And these were special cards that were just kind of found. I believe it was you got one out of every box. And during the entire Neo set, Charizard really hadn't been printed at all, just because, they did have newer games out. They really wanted to focus on some of the newer Pokemon, which I completely get. However, during their last set from that series, they actually surprised us with the Shining set. So there's a Shining Charizard, Mewtwo, Gyarados, Magikarp, Raichu, Celebi, and Kabutops, and I'm sure maybe I'm missing one or two more. I think actually Steelix and Tyranitar were the other two that I was trying to think of. Gameplay wise, in terms of the card game, they really weren't too great. A lot of them had, big attack costs that also cost multiple energy, and a lot of times with the current meta just really weren't worth playing. They were more of collector's items. And that being said, I think that's completely okay. To me, it's a beautiful card. And the other interesting thing about it is, and I'm not sure how well it'll really pick up with the camera, this is the shiny for Charizard. However, it's not black. So during Gold, Silver, and Crystal, Charizard actually had an alternate shiny pattern. It actually looked like Barney the dinosaur if he had just done like the Hot Ones challenge, or had just, pounded an entire bottle of hot sauce. So instead of being black, it was purple, and then had, I believe it was green on its wings. And that was later changed in Gen 3, so your Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, along with Fire Red and Leaf Green, to the shiny that we have today, where it's black with red on it as well. So that being said, knowing that we'll never get another purple Charizard again, which, by the way, I'm completely okay with, I do think that this is really cool from that standpoint as well. And with it being one of the first original secret rares introduced in Pokemon, I think that's really cool as well. And moving on to our last one, which I'm sure probably won't be a surprise to anyone that knows the card game, it is the original base set Charizard. So let me just preface with, I do have a Charizard from base set that is in much, much better condition. However, this is the first one that I got, and even though it is an absolute dumpster fire, I still really just appreciate it, and to me it's, it's just a really well-loved card. So yeah, this is the Charizard that was printed in the very first set, and I'll be honest, so a lot of my friends in that, they're really big into a lot of the Wizards of the Coast era sets. For me personally, I am kind of more of a fan of some of the newer stuff. I just like the idea that they're able to get a little bit more creative with the artwork. I do appreciate a lot of the stuff from the Wizards of the Coast era, especially because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be where we're at now. However, I will say, and especially out of base set, I feel that this was probably the best artwork. To me, just a lot of the other cards in that set, they were more as if they were portraits. There really wasn't a whole lot going on. Maybe with like some of your commons and uncommons, those ones I feel like they did have a little bit more exciting artwork to look at. However, when you hit a lot of the rares and hollows, they tended to be just more of a portrait style, except for Charizard. So despite this one just absolutely, again, looking like it crawled out of the dumpster, it does actively show Charizard breathing fire. And I think, in all honesty, that's the one thing that always stuck with me. On top of it, I think Charizard does have a pretty classic design. It's something that it's actually really cool to see that, there are kids today that are just as excited about this Pokemon that I was back whenever Red and Blue was being released. So those are my top 10. So I feel like we've got a little bit of a variation across the board with some different ones. And I know this is a newer kind of style of video. We might do some more stuff like this further down the road as well. We will also, though, have an opening today. I'm just trying to figure, I'm sorry, not today, but later on this week. I'm just trying to figure out what it is exactly that I want to open. I feel like I have another celebrations thing that I would like to pop open, especially since with our other celebrations one, we didn't get any of the cool retro cards from it, so I'd really like to see if we could get one of them. But anyways, as always, if you could, go ahead and make that sacrifice to the YouTube algorithm by doing, the like, the commenting, and the subscribing. Even share the video if you want to. I appreciate all the support. And for those of you that didn't like the video and you still made it to this point, again, I'm still appreciative of you. You made it this far. Don't hesitate to leave a comment down in the comment section about maybe something you'd like to be changed. But thank you, everyone. Hope you have a good rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time.